Hi, everybody. Welcome back to RVAsec 2023 in beautiful Richmond, Virginia. My next guest, what's your name, sir?
Luke McOmie.
Name of your company?
Bluebastion.
And what do you guys do?
Security services, infrastructure, blue teaming, red teaming, just about anything that you could need out there.
So today we're going to talk about the programmatic help me read that. Program. I can't even say it today.
Programmatic approach to enterprise security.
Yes. All right. Yes. Very good. Talk about the industry's worst practices. Now, people always ask, what are the best practices?
Right.
And that seems like an easy answer, but really, if you answer the worst practices, you come up with the best practices, don't you?
Yeah. When I gave my speech yesterday, it's fun. I go through about 10 examples of different types of things that we've always accepted in the industry as being something that is, this is the way you do it. This is the way you think about it.
That's
right. I changed my service delivery company once a year. I only get pen tested once a year. There are all these things that we hear people say all the time. But as soon as you start digging into it, you find that those are really bad practices, right? They don't actually help us in any way. So it was fun to watch the audience's response. I do kind of back and forth with the audience, asking them the question, and then getting the response from them about, it drives them to answer the question wrong.
Yeah.
Since we're asking about best practices. And then when we go back and talk about it and kind of step through it, you can watch the light bulb kind of go off in their head like, oh yeah, maybe pen testing my network only once a year is a bad idea, right?
I'll tell you what's interesting. So I was a policeman in the 80s, 90s, got into security, ran security at Fox and Disney, did private security companies, and then now I'm here, 40 years later, right? Guess what? When IT started, those guys are super smart and on top of it. And your desktop guy knew all about it, right? Yep. Now the desktop guy is the lower level entry guy, and they've fallen into complacency just like physical security guards do. Yep. And so both industries look different initially. They're exactly the same now.
I can see a lot of similarities.
No, the physical security guard does the same thing that the basic IT guy does because that's how we do it.
Yep.
And to get that model to move, it's almost impossible. And I don't know why. We call it complacency in police work. Complacency gets you killed.
Yeah.
I say complacency in IT could get us killed.
Yeah. It gets you, like, legitimately in some situations, right? You're talking about medical devices. You talk about, things that are routing trains or doing all types of things around public safety and security. It's not just about getting your computer hacked anymore. It's like
that's right.
They can shut down your power. They can shut off your water. They can do all kinds of crazy things. So I absolutely agree with you. It's important that, we look at it and think about it like that.
So tell me how we can be doing better, securing our businesses better. The problem with the business model is, if I'm a big giant company, I can afford you.
Yep.
If I'm a small company, I can't. But you know what I find? Neither one of them are doing anything sometimes. No. Even the big companies.
No. Yeah. And
it's a mindset.
The thing that we learn is that it's less about being restricted by budget or capability or those types of things. It's more about having the conversation and really understanding what are the things that we can spend money on that are going to make the largest impact and have the biggest positive effect towards our security posture today. And when you start kind of approaching and thinking about the problem like that, all of a sudden you're not chasing, a $250,000 MFA installation because your insurance company told you. You're going and you're, removing a whole bunch of antiquated operating systems from your network that don't necessarily need to be there anymore. And all of a sudden you've made this dramatic shift and change in your overall security posture. And that stuff is meaningful, impactful, and valuable, and it doesn't necessarily cost anything.
That's right. Hygiene doesn't really cost anything.
Right.
But it's a changing the mindset. Mm-hmm. Right. That's the problem. Why aren't we viewed as profit centers now? Because IT is always viewed as a cost center.
Yeah.
And you know what? Guess what happens, pal? And I did the analysis on this one day. We got hit when the X-Files was on the air at Fox. Right. It was a power outage. Just a simple thing. I had to go back and do the math, write a report. I found out that it cost $125,000 a minute to be off the air for the X-Files.
Exactly.
Right? And when they figured out what that cost, all of a sudden we got some better backup batteries and backup generators, and we put a guard on the post, right? And so I was always doing metrics to justify my security department, right?
Yeah.
And I knew that it cost literally $125 every time somebody left their keys at home and I had to open the door.
Yep.
And Murdoch comes up and says, if you lose your keys, go home. And he saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Yep, makes sense, right?
So you can turn the mentality of your cost center into a profit center, and IT, I would think, would be the first vertical division that people can sell that to, but it doesn't seem to be the case. It's bizarre to me.
I have learned that a huge part of it is making sure that you have the right language for the right audience.
Well, that's
if I'm
true.
talking to a CFO, I'm going to talk about return on investment in ways that
Right.
it's going to be able to generate more revenue.
That's all
or
they care
save
about.
money for the
They
company.
don't care how you get there.
It's not even that they don't care. It's that that's the right language to talk
Yeah.
to that person. If I'm talking to a COO or a CEO, then I talk about ways to make the business better, to improve culture, to strengthen and mature what's going on inside of the environment. And same thing, if I'm talking to the IT guy that you're talking about, then it becomes a very technical conversation about gaps that we're seeing
Right.
within inside of the environments and things that they could be doing to take next steps to make a difference.
So I got a lot of white hair. My contemporaries are either chiefs of police now, because it started a long time ago, like I did, or they're C-level guys,
Yep.
right, or upper management. Our generation doesn't get it. 10 years older than me, they invented the technology. Our group was out doing discos in the 80s. We don't care about all this stuff. And I had a flip phone. That's fun, right? I didn't learn the tech. Oh, I learned the technology. My contemporaries didn't.
Right.
And now my kids are like, oh, didn't grandma have a cell phone? No, grandma didn't have a cell phone, right? So there's a gap. And
Yeah.
the decision makers at that level are like, no, I don't quite understand all these things. I think that's kind of a selling issue. Just even if you speak the language, they're kind of like reluctant. Are we getting to the point where the next generation is going to be, oh, I'm a C-level guy that was born in the 80s. I get it. Are we getting there?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I find that it's really the individual that makes the difference.
Okay.
I find it's less about the generation.
Oh, all right.
I have seen folks that are extremely successful CISOs that are like barely in their 20s, 30s years
Okay.
old, and they're doing well. But it's because they're taking a larger view of the enterprise, right? They don't get lost in how many vulnerabilities do I have today?
Yeah, that's the problem. That's
Right? It's not what does my security scorecard software say that my A through F grade is today. It's more of understanding the process, understanding the culture of the business that you're managing and that you're providing this executive leadership over, and really being able to find ways to integrate and ensure that security is a mindset within the organization, not just a box that gets checked
Right.
because of a compliance ask.
Give me a success story or a horror story.
Sure.
Yeah.
Most recently, I think that one of the best success stories I have, and again, no client names here,
Yeah.
but very large company that we've been working with for quite some time, and they came to us and they have been scrambling. They had gone through 3 or 4 different providers for security related services. They had like 3 different MSPs that they were working with at that time. They have 2 different audit companies that come in to help them with compliance work that they were doing each year. And when we sat down and visited with them, it was just constantly putting out fires, constant fatigue, constant having to do, readiness to get ready for these different audits and things that are coming in.
Right.
We sat down and we worked with them through this programmatic approach that I'm talking about. And within 4 hours of time, 4 different meetings, 1 hour each, we were able to identify all these areas of strengths and weaknesses within their environment so that myself as a third party coming into the
Right.
business, I can now speak with some level of confidence and some level of understanding to what that business needs and what the next best step should be for them to be able to build a robust, mature program. Not because of something special I've done, but because that company took the time to sit down with me, bring people into a boardroom. Some of those people have worked at that organization for 20 years. They get it.
Right.
They know where the problems are. They know where the weaknesses are. And if we sit down and talk to them about what's critical and important and the priority around how they operate, with their business, it's not about how many vulnerabilities you fixed
Right.
today. It's how many units were you able to sell and get out that door to
Yeah.
generate income for that business. Now all of a sudden we start approaching and thinking about the challenge around security and how to do this right very differently.
And the secret sauce is you can say things as a third party that they can never say inside the boardroom.
I was out to dinner
Politics,
last night.
right?
Yeah, I was out to dinner last night and I was hanging out with one of the friends from here, and he was explaining that for years he has been doing PCI. It's his life, as a QSA. And he was telling a story how he went into a customer's environment and the customer, was just kind of tripping over themselves. And he sat down, he paused for a minute, and he said, "I'm here for you. Let me be your megaphone. Let me be your voice to your board. You tell me what's wrong.
Yeah.
And then let's go down the audit path and we can talk about the next steps. But you tell me what you want me to say to them." And it's amazing how, as a third party, that board will listen to the third party but ignore the person who's worked there
It's
for 20
bizarre.
years.
So I ran security at Fox, right? I mean, Fox and Disney, but Disney, a lot of politics going on, blah, blah, blah. The head guy, who was like my boss's boss, said, I'm hiring, who's the big giant auditor companies?
There's a lot.
Deloitte.
That's one
That's
of
a big
them.
one.
Yep.
They brought in I'm not kidding. At least 15 people. Some accountants, some lawyers, interviewed.
How many months?
Oh, about 3 months.
Yeah,
Interviewed my whole
exactly.
security department. I said, Dave, why? What's going on? Oh, I know you do. This is like the best security department in the whole studio industry. We know it. Okay, what's with this? I can't say that because nobody listens to me because it's my department. You can't say it's your department. So sure as heck, they come in, they write this glowing, this is the best security department in the studio business and ever seen, and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you got what you wanted.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
It cost $250,000 to say what we already knew, but it was somebody else's voice. I thought, I don't understand that. Now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I get it, right?
Yeah, and what I'm finding, and you talked about the generational gap, what
Yeah.
I'm finding that's really great is that we are seeing more and more executives and more leaders who get the fact that they have amazingly competent, talented people. They just need to be enabled.
There
and,
you go. That's
And
usually the case,
sometimes it's the situation where when you're fighting so many different fires, it's not that you need to go scramble and hire a whole bunch of different people to come in. Maybe you just need a project manager.
It is about management, isn't
Right,
it? Ultimately.
just somebody being able to prioritize.
Doesn't even have to be an
and
IT
track it.
manager. Just
Right.
a guy that is good with people.
Absolutely.
And looking at it at 30,000 feet and keeping it spinning.
Yep.
Oh, great conversation,
Absolutely.
my friend.
Absolutely.
Glad
Thank
stopped
you
by.
for having me.
All right, give us the, now you did the lecture already. We'll find that later in the
Yep.
archives. Give us the website one more time.
Bluebastion.net, or our parent company is idealintegrations.net. Check
right.
us out. We're out of Pittsburgh, so just across the way from where
All
we're
right.
at now.
Beautiful.
But thank you again.
All right, back in a minute here at RVAsec 2023.